Hello and welcome to episode 33 of the Beach Travel Wine podcast. This is a podcast all about our year in review, and we chat about how we started our podcast sitting on the floor in an apartment in Paris right through till now and what we've learned along the way. We tell you about the top podcasts that we've done, the most popular ones, and we even tell you about the poor little podcast that's sitting at the bottom of the pile that didn't get any love at all, and why we think that's a shame because, it was a great one, we thought. Anyway, we tell you what they are, and if you listen to the end, you'll hear me tell you about how I got my words muddled up when I was working on a nude cruise. Yes, you heard that right, a nude cruise. So it's a fun episode. We tell you what we've got planned for next year and how we're going to podcast moving forward. So enjoy the year in review of Beach Travel Wine Podcast. Well, hello, Lyle.
Buenos dias, Leanita.
You won't be able to say that soon.
Why not?
Well, I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay.
So today's podcast, we are doing a year in review, a little recap of our first year or 7 months of podcasting and what we've got coming up next year. So it's a bit exciting, isn't it? Yes?
Apparently.
Well, let's go back, Lyle, to early May. And where were we? Do you remember when we first started our podcast?
Gay Paris.
That's right. And
Paris.
I'd been sort of niggling at you for a month or so about starting a podcast, and every time I mentioned it, you know, you'd roll your eyes to begin with.
Well, generally when you said, Lyle, I've been thinking.
Or I've had an idea.
Yeah, so it's always a scary time.
Well, what I wanted to do was to podcast while we were overseas and travel, and I got the idea from listening to, still one of my favourite podcasts, even though it hasn't been an episode for a while, was When in Spain. And Paul would wander around Madrid and little places and just with his little portable microphone and tell great stories. And I just thought, we could do that. Wouldn't that be great? So that's why we started. And we sort of got to the stage, said to Lyle one day, if we don't start now, we're going to miss the boat. So, this was our first stop on our holiday. And so we just sat down in that apartment in, as Lyle said, in Gay Paris, and we just did it with the same equipment we've got today, which is basically a free app on my phone, and this $35 microphone, which is like two little microphones in one that plugs into the USB that plugs into the phone. So, and it's all we've needed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been surprising how we've been interviewed about 4 times now, and each of the people the interviewers have commented on how good our sound is, which is for $35.
Or it might just be your dulcet tones.
Well, that could be possible too. I wouldn't sell that short.
No, the talent. But we loved it, the first one, and we just had a real high and listened back. And obviously, there's as you can tell, there's no editing. There's not really any scripts or rules. We just make a few notes and off we go. And otherwise, it's just too hard, and we wouldn't have done it. So,
but I think the fact that we couldn't have picked a more perfect time to start because we were in Paris, which is an amazing place, and I think too that we were going to be in Europe for 3 months. Now, not many people get the opportunity, privilege, whatever the word you want to use, to do that.
Sure.
And we've been able to do basically an episode every week, mainly in Spain, which I think it's very unique.
The other thing is, the premise was, we love to sit down and, I mean, not everyone wants to hear your travel stories. You see some people's eyes glaze over, but there are people that are friends and family that are just so interested in your travel stories, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to actually record those stories, and there'd be other people that would be interested in it. So as you alluded to there, we now do have over 30 episodes, and you said we've done one every week, like week in, week out. And to be honest, that hasn't always been easy. It's, like we did it while we were traveling through Europe. We did one every week. And when we came back, obviously we had places to catch up on. And since we've been back in Australia, we've been from one side of Australia to the other visiting family, which, you know, you're trying to podcast, get some in the bank and try and podcast while you're, you know, in places staying with other people isn't easy either. And I've had to deal with putting one of my mother into aged care, which is a huge process, seeing she lived 4 hours away and there's a lot of on the road stuff, sorting all that out. So, but, you know, we really wanted to be consistent and I think that seems to be the general consensus of, you know, being a successful podcast is just being consistent all the time. So
yeah, to be fair, your part of the process is a lot harder than mine. So for me, I've actually enjoyed the whole thing.
Oh, I love doing it. That's why I think it's easy to be consistent. However, there could be weeks where you're just like, I just haven't got time. You know?
Sure.
And you know, I figure if we can keep going, then that just shows that we are committed to it. You know, but Lyle sort of downplays his role a bit. He does do like of the research. You know, we go to a place and you take information in, but he always, you know, makes sure that we've got the actual, you know, the facts are checked. That's hard to say that. Sometimes I get that mucked up.
It's like shucking oysters, like you were in Cadiz. But anyway,
I had someone come up to me once when I was working on the cruise ship in the gym, and it was on the nude cruise. That's another whole story we could do a podcast about.
What cruise? The nude cruise.
And he was trying to book into a yoga class, and I said, oh, sorry, we're bully fooked.
You hadn't told me that one before. No,
just
very
reminded
good.
me about getting my words back to front.
Well, what time of the day did he ask you that?
I was working, so I...
Okay, so you couldn't have had a little tipple.
So you're the fact checker.
Yeah, but to be fair there too, I'm...
Not the fat checker or the chat fecker.
Yeah. You're playing on it now. But to be fair, I thoroughly enjoy the history of it. I'm a bit of a history buff, so I just love it.
You're just buff, honey.
And then once I start going down rabbit holes, and I find out, you know, different facts that, you know, you think you know, whether it be about the Michelin tire or the Michelin stars, that you hear that, you know, not every day, but it's quite common that you hear it. And you think, well, what is that Michelin star? So then you go down the rabbit hole and you find out it was a Michelin tyre company. And, yeah, it's just surprising. And I think people, you know, I hope people enjoy that part of it as well.
Well, yes, you do. And that's why I enjoy what I do. And that's how I think the podcast has worked so well. We didn't even really think about our different strengths and our different... you know, the different
weaknesses is the word.
No, qualities we bring, you know, and you do the research. And as he tells me and tells everyone he can, he's the talent, which is fair enough. Yeah, you can be the talent. So he does that, and I do the technology stuff, which, as I've pointed out, I'm not real good at that.
and I'm even worse. So that's why I don't even get involved.
And I take all the photos and do the social media and the promotion stuff, which I love doing that. So that's not an issue either. And the biggest job for me is getting the show notes out. So once we record a podcast, I type up, you know, like the not a direct translation of the podcast, but I like to get a good summary of what we've talked about and put the photos on the website. You know, so a lot of people still like to go and look at pictures. But you know, we get it done, and we've done that every week as well. So for every podcast we've done, we've put a blog post out with matching, you know, information and photos.
Yeah, well, to give all credit to you, Leanne, you do a lot of work. I mean, it doesn't just happen. You do a lot of work for the podcast itself and also the marketing. But again, you wouldn't do it if you didn't enjoy it, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you do put in.
Well, thank you. Well, that's nice of you. Another highlight for me was being interviewed on some podcasts, you know, and I've reached out to other podcasts to obviously when you're doing a podcast, you think, oh, it'd be nice to grow it a little bit and get in front of other people who listen to travel podcasts. So the first one we went on was actually the Amateur Traveller podcast with Chris Christensen, and he's got the longest travel podcast. You know, he's been doing it for so long, 17 years or something, and you know, millions and millions and millions of downloads. And so we enjoyed chatting to him all about Asturias in Spain. And then we talked to James Hammond.
Hamo.
On Winging It Travel. And he's a lovely young guy who's just likes to sit and chat. It was almost 2 hours chatting with him, which was great. And then with Elizabeth, who, what a lovely lady she is, and her podcast is called Most Memorable Journeys. She's in Cyprus, so that was a nice chat. And then Journey with Jake. We had a fun, not as long a chat with him, but he found out one of our highlights of our whole travel career.
Oh, that's right.
Which was great. So, yeah, we enjoyed those. And we've got 4 more interviews coming up in January. So, on other travel podcasts and as well. So that's...
Isn't that handy that they're going to do all the work? And we just sit there all over Christmas while your army of grandchildren arrive.
That's right. That is true. So that is method in my madness there, or madness in my method. But that is fun. I love doing the interview ones. We don't have to do. We just, as you said, we just sit and chat. So
yeah, and as I've pointed out previously, during those interviews, there's for me, it's all about just making sure I don't miss the opportunity to take the piss out of Leanne.
Oh, and he does it very well. So, of course, with 30-odd episodes, and most of them about Spain, which we did mention, I just did quickly want to say we didn't sort of think about that's what we'd be doing. Now we look back, we just realise what an amazing resource that is of information all about Spain. I don't know there's many other travel podcasts that have focused, just solely on 30-odd different cities and places around Spain. So if you know anyone's going to Spain, send them to Beach Travel Wine Podcast, because there's just so much information there, from one end of Spain to the other, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 30-odd episodes. Let's talk about some of our top ones. So this was quite interesting, so I went back and as most podcasters know, it's actually pretty hard to collate all your information, because it comes from different platforms, and some of those platforms don't like sharing. But I've been over them, and what I wanted to talk about was, right, I was going to do the top 3, but it sort of comes down to the top 5 really, because there's a couple of ties. So at the top, I've told you, I was going to get you to guess, but I've already told you what they are. This is. I'm sort of happy about this, because the tying for top position is Nerja, which is episode 8.
Which is where?
Nerja's in the Costa del Sol. Yeah, down the south. And the reason I like the fact that it's one of our top ones is because we said if we would go back to one place in Spain, like from our last trip, we would want to go and have time in Nerja. It was one of our favourite places, and we also think it's the perfect holiday spot. So
I think, and then that was not about travelling. That was about having a beach holiday.
Yeah.
So we really had a holiday there for 3 weeks.
And enjoyed all the Spanish flavour of that holiday. But up there with Nerja is Seville, and once again, I'm glad it's one of our top episodes, because we'd been to Seville previously and for one night, right. And we just like, what is everyone raving about? But we thought we've got to go back, and my gosh, that if you only go to one city in Spain, for Spanish history and the wow factor, you'd have to put Seville up there.
Oh, really. Sure.
So that was episode 10, Seville, and we.
Maravilloso.
Sí, we love. Yeah, sí, me encanta. Sí.
Yeah.
And
which is marvelous, and Leanne loves it.
Yeah. But I think Seville's one of our longest podcasts. It goes over an hour. Normally they'll be between sort of the 45 minutes to 50 minutes, because we just had so much to talk about there. And just loved that. So those two there. So episode 8, Nerja, and episode 10, Seville. And then coming in sort of third was Madrid.
Yeah.
So, and once again, one of our favourite cities in Spain, and we had so much fun in Madrid. And then Valencia, which was episode 20.
A little bit of salsa dancing club.
I know, right? Yeah. And you gave some great information all about the Museum of Arts and Sciences, which is what a lot of people go to Valencia for sure. And it's where Lyle almost got drowned. That was another funny story.
Yeah, and Leanne's got it on film actually. But anyway, is that on the Facebook? Not Facebook.
Instagram. It sure is.
Yeah.
And then coming in at number 5, where it all began, taking us right back to the beginning, was Paris. So maybe that's because it was our first one, and it was interesting. But it was lots and lots of fun, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, Paris was fabulous.
Yeah, we had a great time there, and we definitely want to go back there. So there's been some definite standouts. What I've sort of noticed now, though, with the podcast is they're all pretty steady numbers. You know, like the growth's gone up, and they're all sort of sitting, you know, around the same. So, you know, there's not one standout like there has been. You know, what might come up, who knows? So another couple of interesting stats I thought was we've been listened to in nearly 50 countries. So 48 countries have listened to our podcast. So how cool is that? I guess it's a travel podcast, so you'd hope you'd be spreading the word, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I know you're not going to believe this, but I did some research on actually how many countries there are in the world, and there's 198. Oh. So basically a quarter of the world has listened to us.
Yeah, well...
You know, I'm probably stretching that a little bit, but...
I like your thinking,
Yeah. So,
statistics, yes, you can't go wrong with that. So the top 5 countries are the US...
Sure.
Australia, UK, Spain, which you'd hope it'd be up there, and Canada. So that's pretty cool. But there's some really different countries that I'm like, wow, someone's listened from really crazy places. And one of the things that Spotify does is it does a wrap, you know, of your stats for the year, which is very clever. But another stat that sort of stood out for me was that we're in the top 10% of shared podcast globally. And so you said to me, not sure what that means. And what that means is somebody's listened to a podcast and there's a button at the bottom that you can press to share it. So, you know, that means that enough people have done that and either shared it, you know, with a friend or on a message or, you know, on social media, however they've done it. So that's pretty cool. Or
our family or our friends, maybe.
Yeah, but top 10%.
Sure. We'll take anything we can get.
Yeah. We have to stop paying them now, though. Now we've got the numbers. So there's some of the great stats. So I'm stoked with how much fun we've had. Yes, it's been some work, and sometimes it's been, you know, trying to fit it in, but we've always got it done. But on the other side of that, Lyle, there's one little podcast out of all these that sits right at the bottom, like so far at the bottom, it's, you know, so far underwater, I don't think it's ever going to get out, and it's just sitting down there, and it's just doing nothing. Like compared to the others, it's dreadful. And
yeah, we went from chocolate rolls to salada crackers on this.
We did, and that is it's called the Chelsea Flower Show.
And seriously, it is one of the funniest. You know, when we listen back, it's probably the funniest out of all of them. It was, we really had a good time that day. It was one of Leanne's bucket lists.
It was. It's episode 4, by the way. I just had to look that up. So
Look,
it's gone from Paris being, you know, one of the most popular, and Madrid and Zaragoza even, which we didn't mention, which is another popular one. And London and little old Chelsea Flower Show.
Yeah, we talk about I had to have a Sudafed
at the Rosé Bar.
At the Rosé Bar. We bought the most expensive glass of champagne in the world at the Pommery Marquee.
But we also talk about, you know, walking around and looking at the displays and what we saw and how just describing it, and it was just amazing. And we also talked about the first Koala Award. Remember?
That's correct. Yeah. What was that lady's name? Jo. Yeah, she was a nice lady. But so, you know, I think the other thing is even if you don't listen to the podcast, if you go to where you've got the photos,
yes,
some of the photos were just outstanding.
Sure. So episode 4 was the Chelsea Flower Show. But if you do go to our Instagram's the best place to. Well, that's not true. Instagram at Beach Travel Wine. And you go to the stories, highlights across the top, and you can swipe across to the Chelsea Flower Show and you'll see all the videos. But also our website, you know, www.beachtravelwine.com, and, you know, at the blogs, and go down to the Chelsea Flower Show. All the photos are there. Literally 60, 70 photos of the Chelsea Flower Show is, you know, so
We had a very, very, very funny day.
I know. So show us some love, will you? Like, I'll be interested to see if poor old little Chelsea. God, and I love that name. I was going to call my daughter Chelsea too. I just love it. But anyway, I had 2 boys first, and by the time my daughter came around, Chelsea, I got a bit bored of that. But so yeah, Chelsea Flower Show at episode 4. Show us some love, poor old Chelsea. Anyway, I had a nice time, and it was my bucket list. See or not?
Sure.
With any good recap of what's happened in the year, there's a what do they call it?
A preview.
A preview
of the upcoming events.
There we go. So it's more probably good luck than good management that we've come to the end of our Spanish series right at the end of the year, and starting in January we are going to be starting a new series, and we are going to be doing that all about Australia, and starting close to home in our home state of Queensland, aren't we?
Sure.
Yeah. So we've travelled a lot in Australia, and we got to travel a lot during COVID when we couldn't go overseas, and we've basically been from one end of Australia to the other, from Tasmania to Darwin up the east coast. And
well, just to explain to some of the overseas listeners, we were pretty lucky in Australia in relation to COVID, and especially because we're such a large country and there's only really 5 states and 2 territories. Once the initial hit came and went, we were allowed to travel within our own states. So, and our own state, being Queensland, is huge, and it's.
But early on too, we were still able to go to places like Tasmania and up in the Northern Territory. So we got to do a little bit, but yeah, we certainly were able to explore Queensland,
sure,
as you're saying, and we took advantage of that, didn't we?
Yeah. We start, not started from, but down south at the Granite Belt, which is all about the local Queensland wine, up to the Cape Tribulation, which is right up top of North Queensland, and we took in the Great Barrier Reef, the Whitsundays.
So we're going to start though on Australia's glamour strip, they call it.
That's correct. Yeah, Gold Coast.
We're going to talk about the Gold Coast. And there's a couple of reasons we went to the Gold Coast, which we'll tell you all about. But one, it's got to do with a very handsome young racing car driver.
Yeah. Harrison Jones.
That's him. And where we stayed, and lots of things that you can do there. Now, remember, our podcast is sort of for couples over 50, so we're not doing the theme parks and things. We're going to some nice restaurants and some shows, and so we're going to tell you all about that in the first one coming up in January. But as Lyle said, the Great Barrier Reef, and we've been to the Great Barrier Reef 3 times, I think, or 4 times actually during COVID, and we went twice at the Whitsundays and Airlie Beach and Daydream Island, and then we've been up to Port Douglas twice, which is up near Cairns, and we've done scuba diving, so we're going to go tell you all about those places.
We did the reef sleep.
Yeah, that's fabulous. We're going to tell you all about that. Also, we're going to even just about Brisbane. We've got this fantastic place we stay in Brisbane, and we'll tell you why we love that, and what the sorts of things you can do from there, like sporting events and jazz clubs and things.
And restaurants.
Oh my gosh, yeah, some really great restaurants there. And you mentioned the Queensland Granite Belt, the wine region, and even just the Sunshine Coast, like Noosa, which is, one of the most beautiful places I think I've still ever been.
Yeah, I think with Noosa, a lot of people, maybe a lot of our overseas people would have heard of Noosa and how beautiful it is. We were going to tell you, it's that beautiful.
It is, and that's just in Queensland. And obviously we've done the lap of Tasmania, which is the little island right down the bottom, which is stunning. We've been all the way over to Western Australia, which is like almost a 6-hour flight, so that's how far it is, and down to the bottom of Western Australia, where the next stop was, Antarctica. So lots and lots of Darwin, one of Lyle's favourites, where the jumping crocodiles are.
I don't know. I love Darwin. I thought we went there just to watch a concert, and we thought, well, we may as well stay for a week, and it wasn't COVID. And we flew over Kakadu, and we just had the best time.
We did.
However, it never really wasn't a good influence on my appreciation of crocodile.
So yeah, lots and lots of stories coming up. So that's exciting, and it's going to be a different format because there's not all the history and stuff that Spain had. So.
Well, don't forget, we've got the Barossa Valley, the Kelly Valley, the McLaren Vale, and wine areas, Adelaide Hills of South Australia.
Sure.
And Tailem Bend.
Yes. Yeah.
Another little,
racing car story.
Another racing car story.
So heaps and heaps of stories that we've got, travel stories to share. And even a road trip, even though I hate driving, a little road trip we did where we even saw some platypus in the wild. So pretty exciting.
Right. That's right. Where did we stay in that? What was the name of that place?
Well, I'd tell them in the podcast.
No, come on, tell them.
I don't remember. Angela, the name of the town.
No, the little...
Oh, that's right. There's a little caravan park. It's the Crab and Barra caravan park.
Crab and Barra. How Australian is that?
Right.
The Crab and I'll tell you what, if you think about the Crab and Barra caravan park, that's exactly how it was.
Well, there's all sorts of stuff coming your way.
Yeah, that was funny.
We've also got some trips outside Australia next year.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to be podcasting while we do that as well. Now, one of them I'm quite excited about is we're going to Mexico. And...
Mexico.
Yeah. Porque las personas hablan español.
Sí. So that's so Leanne can practice her Spanish.
Correct. The people speak Spanish. But yes, but this is a bit different for us. We're actually doing a tour which we've never done, and we had a credit that we had to use up, and so we picked... Anyway, long story short, we're going to podcast as we go, or record as we go. So every day we might do a little 10 minutes of what it's like, all the good and the bad, the ugly, and put that together as an episode. So I'm actually quite looking forward to doing that. And luckily we don't have all these microphones and things we've got to carry with us. We've just got the phone and the little...
Yeah, sure.
our equipment. So that's exciting. And we're off to New Zealand again in August. So with 8 adults, 8 grandchildren. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, ski trip.
We're going to Queenstown skiing.
So Leanne's favourite part of the ski trip is not so much the skiing; it's having the after skiing drinks.
Yeah,
she loves having that in the open fires. And New Zealand is,
yes,
as you said on more than one occasion, the most beautiful country we've ever been in.
Yeah, I think so. The landscape there. So that's coming up in August. So we're going to do like an intergenerational holiday first for a week, and then they've all got to go home after a week, and we're going to stay, and then we'll do more of a adult take on the we'll go to wineries and the fancier restaurants and things in
Yes,
Queenstown.
I'm very looking forward to our wine trip to Otago.
Yes.
Which is the world famous New Zealand Pinot Noirs.
Yes.
So that'll be good.
And then we also we do this all the time. I'm trying to convince Lyle, should we go back to Spain? Can we go back to Spain? It's all about timing and money and all that stuff. But there's also
money. And
then there's obviously friends we've got in Sydney and friends we've got in Melbourne and friends in Hobart. So we've got lots of people. We want to go and see and spend time with as well, and my brother who's up in sort of central Queensland, and we want to go out to the Lady Elliot Island and do some snorkeling and so there's lots of stuff that we've got sort of rolling around as well, so that's all pretty exciting.
Well, we've also got the Japan ski holiday that we still haven't done, and Portugal or Portugal,
yes,
as they say in España. So there's still plenty to look forward to. Yes. I hope anyway.
Yes, but a couple of other things to we're sort of thinking. We're sort of I'm sort of wondering if we should make our episodes a bit shorter and then spread them out, or should we make them a bit longer and might do one every 2 weeks? It's sort of some figuring out the best practice moving forward as well. I would like to start an email newsletter as well, even though that's more work and trying to collect people's emails. I'm trying to figure out the best way to maybe do that, and also moving forward to how we promote and share our podcast. We do all the social media stuff, but I'd like to come to have some ideas that are a little bit different and move forward doing that. Like, let's keep saying move forward, but there must be there's got to be a different way of putting new podcast out now and put a link to it. You know, I don't know that inspires anybody to go and listen to a podcast. You know, I think from social media. So, if anyone's got any ideas, let me know. And we might get back to our Facebook Lives because we did a few of those and we enjoyed those. They're a lot of fun and it's a good way to, well, back to the previous point, talk about the podcast and promote the podcast. You know, I think, you know, people sort of get to know us. We don't have any scripts. We have a bit of a laugh and, you know, talk about what we've talked about in the podcast and, you know, so... But that seemed harder to be doing a Facebook Live than actually get the podcast done, trying to be consistent with that. So, you know, whether we can bring that back. And is there anything you'd like to add? You know, a bit more flair, a bit more talent? You want to do... That's right, you want to do a bit more singing, didn't you? Yeah,
no, I don't. I want to tell more jokes.
Right.
But you won't let me tell the jokes that I want to tell. And I only know those sort of jokes. So I think that's
you know what? You could
harsh.
You could start your own podcast like Lyle's dirty jokes, if you like.
Oh, dirty's probably pushing it, but you're probably right. But no, I just think that I think what's enhanced our holiday has been the podcast because we know so much more about the history, the culture, all that.
You pay more attention, don't you?
You pay so much more attention.
Yes.
The fact that it's probably our third or fourth time back to Spain, and each time, you know, we started off with 4 weeks, 8 weeks, now it's 11 weeks. And I think that especially Leanne's become so much more proficient with speaking Spanish. And I think that for a whole bunch of reasons enhances a holiday. Doesn't mean that you've got to speak Spanish because, you know, if you go to the larger cities and that sort of thing, people do speak Spanish, but there's also... English.
Yeah.
But there's also lots of areas where they don't. And the fact that Leanne's been able to speak the language has just really made it a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? That's good because I think being able to speak English will enhance our holidays in
Australia. Oh, you dickhead.
Well, it's been a wonderful 30-something episodes with you, podcasting.
Yeah.
You know, 99% of the time it's been good. You know, we've had a couple of episodes that we made a few mistakes on and had to redo, but other than that, it's been a great experience, and we look forward to telling you all about our holidays going forward and all about Australia. Sí o no? So for the last time...
Feliz Navidad.
Navidad, sí.
Todos
yes.
Nuestros amigos.
So, happy Christmas, all our friends.
Correct.
Hasta luego.
Amigo.
Amigos.